Hello everyone, welcome back to ComMed Made Easy, and I hope you all are doing very well. Before we begin, let me remind my dear students that the contents of this channel are only to supplement your knowledge, not to replace the regular online and offline classes in your institution. So please attend your classes and do not miss them. Also, if you like our contents, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the videos, and share these videos with your friends, with your batchmates, with your juniors. Also, if you are a teacher, then with your students. Please follow our Facebook page, and the link will be given in the description. Today's topic of discussion is cancers. Cancers are a group of disease characterized by an abnormal growth of the cells, their ability to invade adjacent tissues and even to the distant organs, and the eventual death of the affected person or patient if the tumor has progressed beyond the stage when it cannot be successfully removed. So, cancer can occur at any site or tissue of the body and may involve any types of cell. For example, we have carcinomas which arise from epithelial cell linings of various organs, for example, mouth, esophagus, intestine, uterus, etc. We also have sarcomas deriving from the mesodermal cells of different connective tissues like fibrous tissue, fat, and bone. Then we also have lymphomas, myeloma, and leukemia arising from the cells of the bone marrow and the immune system. We can also have a different classification, for example, primary tumor and secondary tumor. Primary tumor refers to those tumor or cancer rather, which occur in the organ of origin. And in secondary tumor, the cancer is actually spread to the distant organ or even to the regional lymph nodes. Now, the problem statement. First, the global scenario. In the year 2020, the global burden of cancer was as high as 19.29 million new cases and 9.958 million deaths. The most common cancer that was diagnosed was breast cancer, followed by lung cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, and stomach cancer. The most common cause of death due to cancer was lung cancer, and that was followed by hepatocellular carcinoma, stomach or gastric carcinoma, and breast carcinoma. Now coming to the Indian scenario. So the National Cancer Registry Program of ICMR, they provide the data regarding the incidence, mortality and distribution of cancers from 28 population-based registries and 5 hospital-based registries. We shall discuss the cancer registry later. So in the year 2020 in India, the number of prevalent cases were about 2 million, or rather better to say 2.72 million, and the number of deaths were 8 lakh 51,000 something, and this is the number of new cases 1 million, 1.3 million. The 5 most frequent cancers in men were cancer of lip and oral cavity, lung cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal carcinoma, and esophageal carcinoma. In women, breast carcinoma, cervical carcinoma, ovary, lip and oral cavity, and colorectum are the common cancers. So these two figures have been taken from the book of Park, the latest edition. In the first figure, we can see this is the 8 standardized incidence rates by gender or sex, top 10 carcinomas. So we have the cancers in males and cancers in females. The most common, or better to say the cancer with highest incidence among the female, is the breast carcinoma, and that is followed by the cervical carcinoma. Whereas in the males, the incidence is highest in case of oral carcinoma, and that is followed by lung carcinoma. In the second figure, we have the age standardized incidence and mortality rates. So these red bars denote the incidence and the white bars denote the mortality. So we can say the cancer with highest incidence considering both genders is the breast carcinoma, followed by cervical carcinoma, and then oral cavity or cancer of oral cavity. On the other hand, if you are considering death, even then the highest mortality is from the breast carcinoma, followed by the cervical carcinoma. So I believe these two figures are very useful because a lot of MCQs are asked where you are asked about the most common cancer in India, most common cancer among females, most uh, common cancer in terms of morbidity or mortality, whatever. So it would be possible for you to answer to the questions. Now, the causes of cancers. First is the environmental factors. For example, tobacco, in form of smoking tobacco like bidi cigarette, or even chewing or smokeless tobacco like khaini, etc. So they can cause cancer, lung cancer, laryngeal carcinoma, oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, bladder, pancreas, and probably kidney carcinoma. Alcohol with no, alcohol itself or maybe along with tobacco usage can cause esophageal carcinoma and liver carcinoma and probably rectal carcinoma as well. Dietary factors like smoked fish is related to stomach carcinoma, dietary fiber to intestinal cancer, because the less amount of dietary fiber we take, there is higher chance of intestinal cancer. So this is not direct relation, it is inversely related. Beef consumption to bowel carcinoma, and high fat diet to breast carcinoma. So these are the different dietary factors which are related to different carcinomas. Occupational exposures include exposure to benzene, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, vinyl chloride, asbestos, polycyclic hydrocarbons, etc. So a lot of different kind of chemicals. When we're exposed to these chemicals, we develop the risk of developing the cancer. Certain infections, especially the virus like hepatitis B and C, which are associated with hepatocellular carcinoma, HIV associated with Kaposi sarcoma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, Epstein-Barr virus with Burkitt's lymphoma and nasopharyngeal carcinoma, cytomegalovirus with Kaposi sarcoma, and human papillomavirus with cervical carcinoma. And parasitic infections like schistosomiasis is associated with bladder carcinoma. Certain customs, habits, and lifestyles, for example, smoking itself, is associated with lung carcinoma. Tobacco and betel chewing, like pan and all, they are associated with oral carcinoma. Others include sunlight because of the ultraviolet ray, radiation, air and water pollution, medications like estrogen, all of them are found to be somewhat associated with few carcinomas. Genetic factors, for example, retinoblastoma occurs in children of the same parents. So if the parents have retinoblastoma, it's very likely that their child will also develop retinoblastoma. Mongols are more likely to develop cancers like leukemia than the normal children. So as you can see, some genetic factors are probably there determining the occurrence of carcinoma. Now coming to cancer control, how we can control the situation. The basic approach to the cancer control is through primary and secondary prevention. So either we are already exposed to the risk factor, so we can avoid that, avoid any further exposure so that the disease does not even develop. So that is primary prevention. Or maybe the cancer has already taken place, but probably it is in the tumor stage or anything, like in the early stages of the cancer when it is probably reversible. So if we can diagnose the situation as early as possible and also initiate the necessary treatment, probably that will benefit the person and the complications will not develop. So it is estimated that at least 1/3 of all cancers are preventable. So primary prevention include control of tobacco and alcohol consumption. So as you already saw, there are a lot of different kind of cancers which are associated with tobacco and alcohol consumption. Personal hygiene may be beneficial in certain cancers, especially oropharyngeal carcinoma as well as cervical carcinoma. Radiation, exposure to radiation can be prevented. Occupational exposure, so different industrial exposure, maybe a person is working in any kind of chemical industrial like that, so these people are exposed to different kind of chemicals, we mentioned those things here, and that can also be avoided. Immunization, certain vaccines can prevent cancers known as cancer vaccine, which we shall discuss separately in a different video. Foods, drugs and cosmetics, again some of the chemicals, pesticides, insecticides present in the foods and drugs and cosmetics, maybe any kind of chemicals, they can also cause cancer, so it is better to avoid them. Air pollution, treatment of precancerous lesions. Sometimes there are certain precancerous lesions which can progress into cancers. So if you can diagnose these precancerous lesions in early stage and maybe take care of them, probably that cancers will not develop. Legislation, for example, strict prohibition of any use or even selling of tobacco products in any institution, educational institution, maybe a school or college or around or nearby the school or college or even hospitals. These legislations can to some extent benefit the general population. And cancer education. So what is cancer education? Cancer education, it aims to motivate the people to seek early diagnosis and early treatment. So cancer organizations in many countries remind the public of the early warning signs or danger signals. So this is one of the most commonly asked short note: warning signs or danger signals of cancer. That means the person should be able to identify these warning signs or danger signals, which may or may not be a sign of cancer or maybe early stage of cancer. So if a person can identify these signs, he should definitely visit a doctor or any clinician or any healthcare provider and seek any kind of medical advice. So what are the different warning signs and danger signals? These are, for example, a lump or hard area in the breast, a change in a wart or mole, a persistent change in digestive and bowel habits, a persistent cough or hoarseness, maybe laryngeal carcinoma, excessive loss of blood at the monthly period or loss of blood outside the usual dates. There can be cervical carcinoma. Blood loss from any natural orifice, a swelling or sore that does not get better, unexplained weight loss, etc. So all these are different early warning signs or danger signals. Now coming to the secondary prevention. First one that we shall discuss is the cancer registration. So it provides a base for assessing the magnitude of the problem and for the planning of the necessary services. Cancer registries are basically of two types: hospital based and population based. So cancer registration basically gives us an idea about how much of the cancer burden we have in the country, and also based on this burden we can plan the necessary services. That means how much manpower or even funding or even infrastructure we need for the preventive, promotive and curative services in context of cancers. So the first type is hospital based registries. The hospital based registry includes all patients treated by a particular institution, whether inpatients or outpatients. So any cancer patient coming to the OPD or outpatient door, or maybe they are admitted in the hospital, will be included in the hospital based registries for that particular institution. Registry should collect the uniform minimum set of data recommended in the WHO handbook for standardized cancer registers. So there should be a minimum set of data that is recommended by WHO handbook, and this information should be included in the hospital based registries. Next one is the population based registries. The aim is to cover the complete cancer situation in a given geographic area. The optimum size of base population for a population based cancer registry is in the range of 2 to 7 million. The data from such registries alone can provide the incidence rate of cancer and serve as a useful tool for initiating epidemiological inquiries, like what are the different factors leading to the development of these cancers, the surveillance, that means how the disease is progressing, the distribution and determinants, etc., planning to control the situation, also evaluation of the operational activities in all main areas of the cancer control. Right now in India we have 28 population based cancer registries and 58 hospital based cancer registries. Now coming to early detection of cases. Now, effective screening programs have been developed for cervical cancer, breast cancer, oral cancer. So in subsequent slides, we shall discuss the screening method for these three special kind of cancers, that is cervical cancer, breast cancer and oral cancer. Early diagnosis has to be conducted on large scale. However, it may be possible to increase the efficiency of cancer screening programs by focusing on high risk groups. So rather than conducting this screening program of the whole population, if we consider doing this on the high risk people, maybe the efficiency of the screening program will improve. And the last one is the treatment. Certain forms of cancer are amenable to surgical removal when the cancer is still restricted within the organ, while some other respond favorably to radiation and chemotherapy or both. Maybe the cancer has spread beyond the organ of origin and maybe spread to the nearest lymphatics or maybe to the distant organs. So in that case, when they are not surgically resectable, probably we have to go for the radiation or chemotherapy option, or maybe a combination of both. The WHO has developed guidelines on relief of cancer pain. Freedom from cancer pain is now considered a right of cancer patients. Next, we shall discuss three different cancers, their risk factors, their clinical features, and also the prevention. So we shall discuss oral cancer, cervical cancer, and breast cancer. First one is the oral cancer. So cancer occurring in the oral cavity, which can include the lips, the inside lining of the lips and the cheeks, that is the buccal mucosa, the teeth, the gum, the front of the tongue, the floor of the mouth, below the tongue, and the hard palate, etc. So what are the risk factors? Tobacco in any form, that means it can be smoking, that means bidi or cigarette, or can also be smokeless or chewing tobacco like khaini, gutkha, etc. Alcohol, chewing betel quid or pan with supari, that is areca nut, and chun, that is lime. Precancerous lesions, that is erythroplakia and leukoplaskia. Immunocompromised status, human papillomavirus infection, although this is more commonly associated with cervical carcinoma, but it can also be associated with oral carcinoma. Poor oral hygiene, sharp teeth or ill-fitting denture, maybe they will keep injuring or hurting the inside of the mouth, that is the buccal mucosa, for a long time, leading to some kind of ulcer, which will ultimately develop into cancer. So what are the different symptoms? So we have a long list of symptoms. Mouth ulcers that persist for more than 3 weeks. Persistent pain in the mouth, a lump or thickening in the cheek, a white or red patch on the gums, tongue, tonsil or lining of the mouth, a sore throat or a feeling that something is stuck in the throat, difficulty in chewing or swallowing, difficulty in moving jaw or tongue, difficulty in tolerating spicy foods, bleeding or numbness of the tongue or other area of the mouth, swelling of the jaw that causes denture to fit poorly or become uncomfortable, loosening of the teeth or pain around the teeth or jaw, changes in the voice or having speech problems, a lump in the mass or neck, a lump or mass in the neck, weight loss, constant bad breath, excessive salivation, repeated biting of cheeks because of sharp teeth, etc. So screening is done by oral visual examination. So the mouth cavity is thoroughly checked. For example, here the inside of the right cheek and inside of the left cheek are being looked at. This is the below the lip, lower lip, and below the upper lip, including the gums, side of the tongue, the lower surface of the tongue, and also the palates. The hard palate can be visualized. So this is known as oral visual examination. So any kind of abnormality in terms of ulcers or patches like erythroplakia, leukoplaskia, if it is found, it should be investigated immediately. Prevention is done mainly by primary prevention, that is intensive public education and motivation for changing lifestyles, supported by legislative measures like banning or restricting the sale of tobacco. Secondary prevention include early detection and early detection of the precancerous lesions that can be treated or cured. The main treatment modalities that offer hope are surgery and radiotherapy. Next one is the cervical cancer. So cervical cancer is the second most common cancer in women worldwide after breast carcinoma, and the most common in women of underdeveloped and developing countries, which bear more than 80% of the global burden of the disease. So what are the risk factors? Human papillomavirus or HPV infection, smoking, young age at first sexual activity, multiple sexual partners, unprotected sex or poor sexual hygiene, early marriage, early childbirth in women younger than 17 years, frequent childbirth, weakened immune system such as HIV/AIDS infection. The common symptoms include vaginal bleeding between periods, menstrual periods that are longer or heavier than usual, postmenopausal bleeding, bleeding after sexual intercourse, pain during sexual intercourse, smelly vaginal discharge, unusual vaginal discharge tinged with blood, backache, lower abdominal pain, fatigue, extreme tiredness, unexplained weight loss, pain in the legs, pain during urination or micturition. So if we look at the natural history of the disease, cancer cervix seem to follow a progressive course from epithelial dysplasia. So first we have normal epithelium, it progresses to dysplasia, then to the carcinoma in situ, and then to the invasive cancer. If you look at the arrows or direction of the arrows, better to say, so up to the carcinoma in situ stage, they are still reversible, right? So if it is in dysplasia, it can still go back to the normal epithelium. If it is in carcinoma in situ, it can go back to dysplasia and maybe to the normal epithelium. But when it becomes invasive, it is not reversible anymore. So human papillomavirus is the most common viral infection of the reproductive tract and is the primary underlying cause of cervical carcinoma. There are more than 100 types of HPV, of which at least 14 are known as high risk type that are associated with cancer. The two types, 16 and 18, causes 70% of the cervical cancers and precancerous cervical lesions. HPV type 6 and 11 are classified as low risk type, and these low risk type types are associated with genital warts. So another MCQ, type 16 and type 18, they are very commonly associated with carcinoma of cervix or cervical carcinoma. Screening can be done by pap smear or also known as Papa Nicolau smear. The prolonged early phase of cancer in situ can be detected by the pap smear. Current policy suggests that all women should have a pap test or cervical smear at the beginning of sexual activity and then every 3 years thereafter. So when they are beginning their sexual activity or sexual life, that is the time they should do their first pap smear, and after that every 3 years she should undergo one pap smear or cervical smear examination. However, screening for cervical cancer cervix using pap smear requires excessive resources in terms of laboratories, equipment, and trained personnel. So, taking a spear, uh, looking at it under the microscope, it needs the infrastructure itself, like laboratories in equipment. Also, the personnel should be adequately trained. So that is one of the problem with pap smear. So the better option is visual inspection. So there are multiple options like VIA, that is known as visual inspection with 5% acetic acid, VM, that is visual inspection with 5% acetic acid with magnification. So basically VIA with magnification, and also VILI, that is visual inspection post application of Lugol's iodine. We have to understand the basic anatomy. Ectocervix is covered by pink stratified squamous epithelium, whereas endocervix is covered by reddish columnar epithelium. So the present strategy is to screen women using visual inspection after application of freshly prepared 5% acetic acid solution, and it is prepared by adding 5 ml of glacial acetic acid to 95% of distilled water. So this is how 5% acetic acid solution is prepared. Now this 5% acetic acid is applied at the squamocolumnar junction. We have squamous epithelium and columnar epithelium, and there is junction between them, that is squamocolumnar junction, and we look for any changes. Detection of well-defined opaque acito-white lesions. This is very important. Acito-white lesion close to the squamo-columnar junction, well-defined circumorificial acito-white lesion, or dense acito-whitening of ulceroproliferative growths on the cervix constitute a positive VIA or VM. So, if we look at certain images, so if you remember, we said endocervix is red, ectocervix is pink. So because this is squamous epithelium. So this is, if you see, the inside is red, this is endocervix, and this is ectocervix, that is pink. Pink is because of the squamous epithelium. So this is squamous epithelium, inside is the columnar epithelium. Same here, this is pinkish, inside is reddish. This is not very clear, but I believe this is a better picture. So this is VIA negative because there is no acito-white lesion in the squamo-columnar junction. If we look here, there is definite acito-white lesion here, here at the squamo-columnar junction. So this is the reddish endocervix and this is the pinkish ectocervix. So we have the squamo-columnar junction here and this is the acito-white lesion. This is also VIA positive. This is VIA positive and this is also VIA positive, because we have here the dense acito-whitening of ulceroproliferative growth. If you see the third diagram here, these are very much clear. Now pap smear and the biopsy are the investigation that are done to ensure that there are cytological and histopathological backup for the intervention. So after we find any acito-white lesion or ulceroproliferative lesion, etc., with visual inspection, that is not confirmatory of cervical carcinoma. We definitely have to go for pap smear or maybe biopsy to confirm, because we have to look for the cytological and histopathological detailing of the ulcers. VIA positive women are eligible for cryotherapy or thermocoagulation. So these are the options. If there is cervical carcinoma, these are the treatment options. So again, prevention is primary prevention or secondary prevention. Primary prevention is done based on the concept of avoiding the risk factors so that the disease does not develop. All right. The next one that we shall talk about is the breast cancer. So it is a group of cancer or malignant tumor that develops from the cells of the breast. It is the commonest cancer among women all over the world. We already discussed that. What are the risk factors? Family history of breast cancer, early onset of menstrual period. That means the menarche occurring early, before the age of 12 years. Late age at the first childbirth after 30 years. No pregnancy, never having a full-term pregnancy. Shorter duration or no breastfeeding. Late menopause, that is after 55 years. Previous treatment using radiation therapy. Being overweight or obese, especially after menopause. Smoking, lack of physical activity, alcohol, using combination hormone therapy after menopause. So all these are considered to be risk factors for breast cancer. Now it is very important that every woman rather, better to say, should have the breast awareness, because the first person to detect any lump or any changes in the breast is the woman herself, which is by teaching the woman to be aware of any of the following signs at the earliest possible. So a change in the size, a nipple that is pulled in or changed its position or shape, a rash that is around the nipple, discharge from one or both nipples, puckering or dimpling of skin, if you remember the pudy orange appearance, lump or thickening in the breast, constant pain in the breast or armpit. So if a woman notices any of these changes, she should be aware of the situation and should definitely seek medical advice. Now, breast self-examination is probably the best method for the woman to detect any change. So most breast lumps are found by the woman themselves. By examining her breasts every month, a woman will know how her breasts normally look and feel. If there is a change in her breast, she will be able to see it and let her healthcare provider know. So as I mentioned, if she examines her breast every month, she will know if there is any change, and in that case she should look for any professional care or advice. When to examine the breast? That is the question. It is best to examine the breast 7 to 10 days after the first day of menstrual period. This is the time when the breasts are less likely to be swollen or tender. It should be done every month, even after the menopause. So a woman should be told that even you have received or achieved the menopause, you have reached your menopause, that means you are still at risk, because if you remember one of the risk factors, okay, late menopause, also using combination hormone therapy after menopause. So it can also occur after menopause. So even then the woman should continue doing self breast examination. So how to properly examine the breast? The woman should stand in front of a mirror, because that is the best way to visualize the breasts. She can, first step is to stand in front of the mirror and lifting both the arms above the head. Next, she can put both her arms on her waist and then let her arms hang beside the body. So in these three positions, she should look any changes in the breast. A lot of the things which are to be looked for are like the shape of the breast, whether they are symmetrical or not, any changes in the skin, if any nipple discharge is present or not, any mass or lump if it is visible, size of the mass or lump, the consistency, the mobility, etc. The next step is inspect the breast while in the shower, because if the body is wet, the skin is wet, it is easier for the palpation to be done. So the woman has to palpate her own breast and check for certain changes, like what is the size of the lump or mass, what is the consistency, whether this is hard or soft or may appear like something fluid filled, etc. And also the mobility, that means whether it is attached to the underlying surfaces or the tissues, or it is freely mobile, etc. So all these things are to be seen. And she should also inspect her breast while in lying down position. So turning on one side or the other side, she should examine the opposite side breast. So when she is turning to the right side, she should examine her left breast, and similarly when she is turning to the left side, she should examine the right breast. So this is breast self examination. Also, certain other screening tools are available, like palpation by the clinician. So the specialist, the doctor himself will palpate. He will definitely observe it, then palpate it to find out any changes, and then go for the thermography or the mammography options. So these are the obviously the better method, but it should always be preceded by the breast self examination. This is more important, and this is also asked in short note long question. So with this we conclude cancers today. Thank you very much. If you like the video, please subscribe to our channel, and also share this video with your batchmates, with your juniors, and maybe with your friends from other colleges. You can also follow our Facebook page. The link is given in the description. Thank you very much. Take care, and we shall see you in our next video.